So today I've got Cynthia Rendon on the show. She's the founder of Rendon Law Firm. She's a marathon runner and someone who's been very open about navigating burnout in the legal profession. We're going to talk about high performance, law, boundaries, resilience, and what it really takes to build something sustainable. Um, Cynthia, I call you Cindy, so I'm
Mhm.
going to call you Cindy if that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, for people who may not know you, who are you? What do you do? And what led you into law?
Um, all right. So I'm Cynthia Rendon. That's what my family calls me, Cynthia, but yeah, everyone's Cindy. And I got into law because it was just something that had this real innate sense of justice and wanting to fight for the underdog. I went to SMU for undergrad. I came from a working class family. So I worked hard, was valedictorian of my high school, got a full scholarship to SMU. Graduated from there in 95, went on to UT Law, graduated from there in 1998, and started off at the DA's office because I was wearing that white hat. And I know as a defense attorney, you're oil and water, but I
Yeah.
worked in CPS and I worked in juvenile. And so I felt like I was being able to make a difference in children's lives and, in people's lives. And that's what I enjoyed about it. Um, but then, real life comes along and bills, and that just a vow of poverty going into public service. So I transitioned over to private practice, worked for a number of years doing civil litigation, representing, products manufacturers, in medical malpractice defense. It was all defense work. And then I got tired of representing companies. And because you're just moving money from one side of the spreadsheet to the other, you're not having a relationship with your client. You can't pat a building on the back like, good job, we're going to get through this. And so in 2010, I made the decision to start my own firm, and I loved it. And I still have my own firm. I'm a solo practitioner with Rendon Law Firm, and I represent people, and I enjoy that. You mentioned briefly that I wrote a book, so I have it with me. Judge me not. And I talk about in my book, I went through massive burnout, and I had to, and I still do talk to a therapist, the Stress Dojo, and it's all Zoom, so it makes it super easy. I don't have to get in my car and drive anywhere, which has also made it sustainable for me to continue my healing journey. I can maintain my wellness. But yeah, I call it compassion fatigue. And so
I have no qualms about telling anybody who wants to ask me about it. I see a therapist. I
Mhm.
mean, I think it's a great idea. Y- like you said, this whole profession, we love it. We do it because we love it.
Yes.
But and there's no other reason we would do it because the money's not worth the stress. I mean, you have to love it because it is a really stressful job.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Um,
juggling so many things. You're juggling your clients' expectations, managing those,
mhm.
plus the courts. Not all judges follow the law. Not all judges know the law. And judges are people too. And sometimes they may know the law, but you know, they want to try to split the baby, so to speak. And so you're managing your clients, the courts, opposing counsel. And so there's lots of different, balls in the air at all times. And it does make it stressful. So
And sometimes you get a judge who knows the law and might be a sociopath. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
there's just some out there, and I can think of one right now. I'm not going to name his name. He's no longer on the bench, but I think he took pleasure in like yelling at attorneys and
Uh-huh.
yelling at defendants, and like I hated that court.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We call it black robe syndrome. So
oh yeah, big
I've
time.
been yelled at before. I was in federal court once, and the attorney, everybody, all the other lawyers there who were waiting for our cases to be called, the judge just went off on this lawyer. It was so horrible that we were all looking straight and just kind of, looking at your books and getting ready for your hearing. We were all by the end of her hearing, we're all just looking at the ground. We were just so embarrassed for her that he, how he treated her. But yeah, you get black robe syndrome. But fortunately, there's good judges and bad judges. Just like with lawyers, there's good judges and bad lawyers. So you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But yeah, that
Yeah,
adds to the stress of practicing law. So,
there's a couple of great judges that come to mind, and I'm almost reluctant to call them out and tell them say how good they are, because I feel like some voters might think, well, if some defense attorney likes this good judge, they might be soft, they might be a
Yeah.
weak judge, but they're just fair judges.
Yeah.
They know the law and they apply it properly, and they're not trying to score points with voters by being too hard on defendants, like inappropriately so, which I think some judges do. You know, they think, hey, if I yell at this guy and I make a stink about it and I like slam him for some, defense that's, or for some offense that maybe doesn't deserve that level of punishment, that I'm going to get reelected. And unfortunately, I think sometimes that's true, depending on who your voting base is. But
Yeah, all I ask
yeah,
for is a judge that's fair, that's respectful to the parties, to the attorneys. Just give me a fair shot. Let me present my case and, you know, follow the law. So,
yeah. In family law, do you have judges that'll yell at your clients too, like they do in criminal court?
yes. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. So sometimes it can help. I remember when I first started my own firm, I felt like I was in court every day. But there was a judge who would he would kick out, and he's no longer on the bench. He would kick everybody out of the courtroom except for the attorneys and the parties. Because he would be like, y'all need to go work this out. And he would tell both of the parents, like, you're not going to like my ruling. You're not going to like, what I'm about to rule. This is your last opportunity to try to work something out. And then I remember another time the because divorces can get messy. It's high emotion, and you have some people who are just high conflict. That's something else that I've worked on with setting with my judge me not recovering from burnout was being more selective in the type of cases that I take. But at a time, I had just a ton of high conflict cases, which does wear on you. But yeah, there's one case where the wife had been opening, my client, I represented the husband, had written a hot check and, to HEB or something. And with hot checks, you have to have the intent. Like at the time you wrote it, did you know that this check wasn't, the funds weren't going to be there? They're hard to prove. And anyway, he did. He wasn't getting the notifications. They were sending mail to the house, and she was opening it and keeping it and laughing about it. And then they finally sent one last notice to the house saying, if you don't make good on this, and it was like $20. I mean, something, nothing, we're not talking thousands of dollars. We're going to go and do a hot check complaint. And they did. And so we were in court for a temporary orders hearing, and her attorney, like, judge, before we even get started, there is a warrant out for his arrest. And the judge stopped, and it was a full courtroom. He looked at the wife and said, you better not have been the one that swore this out. I mean, he was just because he was sick of her shenanigans. But of course, he had to have his bailiff look it up. Yes, there was. My client got arrested in court. And so that was an interesting experience. And I'm sure that helped to other people there watching it want to settle their cases because they didn't know what was going on other than this guy is getting arrested in court. Um, but yeah, that same one, so what goes around comes around. She was posting on Facebook about, it was when that Amex commercial was really popular, going to see a baseball game with your kid, priceless.
Right.
Then, so anyway, she had posted on her Facebook about selling your husband's crap for $1 at a garage sale, priceless.
Oh
And
man.
people were like, are you serious? And she's like, yes, I am. So that became my exhibit one, exhibit A to a motion for enforcement because it violated injunctions that we had in place. And, the judge just reamed her out about that. So we had our justice with that. But yeah, you get a lot of high conflict and it does eventually wear on you. So,
you know, you're talking about writing a $20 bad check. I'm pretty sure I did that, and I mean, I
yeah.
did.
I
I
mean,
did it in college. In college, I'd be like, I'd go out after a long night and be like, well, maybe I have funds in the account, maybe I don't, but I sure do want to order a pizza. I write a check, and thankfully nobody ever prosecuted me over a $20 check. I just had to pay
yeah.
the
Well, and he
NSF fee.
shouldn't have
But
been. But,
yeah,
you know, had he gotten his mail, has she not been opening his mail? And, which is
yeah,
also another violation. But yeah, you see it all in family law. It's what the joke is you have good people acting at their worst.
mm-hmm.
Um, so, and then in criminal law, bad people acting their best, you know. So
Well, that's not necessarily true. I'll
I know
tell you,
it's not, but that's kind of just a kind of broad stroke painting that.
and especially what I do, I think, and I tell my clients this all the time because I do, as you know, I mostly do DWI,
Mhm.
and I've represented doctors and lawyers and teachers and nurses and dentists. I've represented professional athletes. I mean, it's just one of those offenses that catches every demo, like every different like
It's
subset of
definitely.
the population. Not people you would necessarily say that's a criminal. I mean,
Mhm.
I'll tell you what, I've represented more than my fair of professionals in the medical profession. I think it's a high stress job too, and that they probably cope with it a lot of the same way that a lot of us do, which
Mhm.
is um,
Not healthy.
drinking
Yeah.
and other worse, substance abuse.
Yeah.
I'm sure when you got out of law school, um, if they still did things for you the way they did when I got out, because I got out, um, I passed the bar in November 2003, and then my first CLE mandatory I had to take was like early 2004. I just started working and
Mhm.
but I still had to do this CLE, and it was all about TLAP. It was all about like these lawyers coming up and being like, I was overwhelmed. I was super stressed. I started doing, cocaine and heroin and drinking at work and all this stuff. And my life was in, shambles and spiraled. And I got a grip on it thanks to TLAP, and look at me now. But, you know, uh, we're stressed as a group. We're a stressed out profession. Um, so,
Yeah, because you have,
but
it's me being a high achiever. I some of the things I talk about in my book that I've learned, I didn't know what boundaries were, and that just was. I'm like, I don't know what's a boundary.
boundaries, what's that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I've learned through therapy how to set healthy boundaries. The biggest one for me was not sharing my personal cell phone because I didn't know when you had your phone, and in defense work, you'd give your phone number to the claims adjuster, and they never called you, they never texted you. It was always during business hours. But when you do family law, I would get texts, like at midnight, and it would go off on my phone, and I would feel the need to, oh, let me respond so I can address their concern right now. Um, or it wouldn't be unusual to wake up and I'd have, just 50 texts from one person about just every little thought going on in their mind. They brought the child back and they forgot her socks. I want to file an enforcement. Again, high conflict. So I've since learned you have to have separate cell phones. So I now have my personal cell phone. Um, that I give to select attorneys as well, because there's some attorneys that you just like, no, I'm not going to give you my personal cell.
Right.
And then I have my work cell, and with my work cell, I'm able to set the hours that I want it to ring, and so I have my work hours. So if someone's texting me after hours, I don't care. I don't get the notification. Um, and then I tell my clients, there's in family law, there are no emergencies because it takes at least 30 days just to get a hearing date. And if it's a true emergency, then you need to call CPS or you need to call the police. But we're not going to get an emergency hearing in court because the courts are just, they're just so busy. So,
I totally relate to you on the boundaries thing. And as a matter of practice in my firm, when a new client comes in, we give them some documentation, kind of some FAQs, and basically I say, look, here's email's the best way to reach me. You can text me, and I give them my personal cell phone, but I say don't call it unless it's an emergency. Do not call this number; it's an emergency. And I even say on there, if it's not an emergency and you call me after hours, I'll bill you at my hourly rate. So I never have.
yeah.
But if it was a problem, I mean, like somebody was doing it repeatedly and wasn't listening to my request, then I probably would.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I give examples like here's what an emergency is. An emergency is not the co parent tells you they're planning to move in 6 months. That's not an
yeah.
emergency. Co-parent has absconded with the kids, they've left the country, that's an emergency.
Hmm.
Um, it's your co-parent is 15 minutes late picking up the kid is not an emergency.
I
Um,
have an iPhone, and my iPhone has a dual SIM card, so I have my business phone and my personal phone there. But I'm gonna do what you're doing because it's not enough. It's not because I can't turn off that number. I can't just shut it down and put it in another room and forget about it. It's
yeah,
right there.
Yeah,
If
you
I'm
see the
looking at TikTok,
notification, and
I'm
then
just
you
getting text messages and stuff.
yeah.
So no, I'm gonna start. You made me come up with that. That's my
Good,
goal. I'm gonna
good.
do that.
I'm glad to help. Glad my experience has helped somebody. But yeah, no, and that for me, that was like one of the biggest boundaries that I was able to make. That helped, helped me to build the kind of practice that I want to have a peace of mind. Also just learning about self care. I didn't know what that meant. I'm like, yeah, I get my nails done, I get my hairs done. What is self care? I have dogs. I play with my dogs.
You
Um,
run.
yeah, I mean, yeah, running is a huge part. It's a good
Yep.
stress relief. But self care now. I meditate.
Me too.
There's just spending time to center myself, and so my idea of self care has changed. Doing your hair and nails. That's to be a professional to maintain your professional appearance. That's so it's self care, but not the type of self care that restores your soul, replenishes, 'cause you can't pour from an empty cup. And I had gotten to the point where I was just bone dry. And so, I was walking around all the time with tears in my eyes, thinking that it's, must be allergies or telling people it's allergies. And I finally cried uncle and started talking to a therapist. And, it's also I feel like it's made me having that pause and having boundaries, focusing more on actual self care, like centering myself with a meditation practice, helps me to be more present for my clients and more empathetic for them and what they're going through. And I think it's helped me to be even a much better advocate for them. So,
Definitely. There's a book, and uh, I recommend it if you haven't read it. It's a quick read. It's called The 5 a.m. Club. It's by Robin Sharma. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I have not read it. So,
Well, I'll give you the Cliff's Notes version. Basically, you wake up an hour earlier than you normally would, and you use that hour to spend 20 minutes meditating, 20 minutes breaking a kind of a sweat, just working out, doing cardio, whatever, and then 20 minutes reading,
oh, yeah,
and reading about someone or something that inspires you.
that's
Um, in some mornings, I don't have that much time, but I'll try and do something. I'll try and meditate for 10 minutes. I might
mhm,
get on the treadmill for 10 minutes. And then in my car, I'll listen to an audiobook, or there's this other one called Blinkist. Blinkist will give like little summaries of books and like
okay,
knock out a whole book in 20 minutes. It's just basically like the key points, but it's better than
mhm,
nothing.
yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes I do that too.
that's
But
nice.
yeah, I mean, breaking a sweat and meditating in the morning, that's a great way to start the day.
I want to look into that, and I like that Blinkist. That's
Oh,
a
yeah. Yeah, it's subscription service, but,
uh-huh.
at first thing in the morning, while you're on your way to work, instead of listening to the radio or, whatever podcast you normally listen to, you can knock out a book, essentially. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's awesome. I know,
yeah.
something besides
And then
law that
and then
just
if you really like it, you can go back and read the whole book, you know?
cool.
It's
I
like,
like that.
I'm testing it out. But, um but yeah, no, I mean, I think starting your day that way, definitely sets you up right, puts you in the right place in your head.
It
Because
does. So
go to
that you're
court next.
responding to things that come up during your day and not just reacting, 'cause it's
Mhm.
reacting that increases your stress. But when you're actually able to, yeah, be the observer self and see here's what's going on, then you can actually more logically respond from a centered place rather than just, freaking out and shooting from the hip. So
Do you meditate just based on you just sit down and do it unguided, or do you use an app or anything?
I do it all. So sometimes I need an app. Sometimes I need just the a bell, or I'll do like an um, or just you know just meditate in silence. So, but
I've become very dependent on this app called Headspace.
mhm,
And the guy, there's a narrator, and he'll walk you through it. And like, because there's times where my mind will wander,
yeah,
and it's almost as if he anticipates that, and then and will kind of like bring you back in and be like, okay, it's okay for your mind to wander, but why don't you count your breaths.
mhm.
And then it just kind of keeps you on track. And I need that because my mind does wander.
Oh yeah, no, everybody, yeah, everybody does, and you're supposed to just observe the thought and get back on track. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's building a muscle. So it's like with anything, like with running, I never I started running 10 years ago. My first race was a 5K, and I was and you as a runner, you can appreciate this story. I was terrified of hitting the wall. All I'd ever heard from other runners were, you're going to hit, not with the 5K, they're talking about marathons, but I didn't know. To me, it was a 5K marathon. Uh, so I had a goo before the 5K, and I had a goo in the middle of the 5K. So, and as a runner, for people who don't run, who are listening, you don't need goos unless you're, running lengthier distances, like
Yeah, over like an
over
hour or more, I would
over
say.
an
Yeah.
hour,
Yeah.
you take a goo. But even now, if I'm running less than 10 miles, I don't do that. If I'm running
But you've run a full or two or
yeah,
three,
I've done
right?
about 8 fulls now.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm
Great.
doing my
That's awesome.
first 50K in April. So I'm dipping my toe into the ultra marathon world. I figure, if I can do 26.2, what's, 5 more miles? Um, so
um,
we'll see. Talk to me
50,
after.
50K is 31 miles.
Yeah, it's about like
Wow.
31 point, 1 or 2. But yeah. So yeah, it's not that
I
bad. Now you're like, your brain is turning like, maybe I could do a 50K.
No, I don't think so. I'm gonna sign up. So the last time I ran a full, I ran in Chicago. I ran in
Chicago's awesome.
2015. Last full I ran. I've signed up for a bunch since then, but I never do it. I'll
Oh,
either I'll either run the half or I
mhm.
do nothing at all.
Got
Um, and I signed up this last year. I even set my sights lower. I didn't even sign up for the full. I signed up for the half, and I still didn't do it. But I swear, this year I'm going to run the half.
You
I'm
need
just trying
to.
to get my back into it, and I'm going to
Yeah.
run with the Kingwood Fit out here.
Good, good. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
with Fort Benfit. So,
yeah.
just a great training group.
Hmm.
My first, but yeah, so the first 5K, and then just kind of the bug just bit me after that. And I ran my first half, was the Sugarland half. Um, no training, just on my own, kind of doing my own thing. And it really showed because at mile 8, I just bonked. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk and I'll just build up my strength and run it in. And my legs were just like, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to walk, be glad that we're walking.
And you run walk like Galloway style, right?
Yeah, I do that. But this one, when I was running initially, I just had that mindset that you don't stop, you just run. Runners run. But yeah, I do the Jeffing. So,
Yeah,
um,
I think the first marathon I ran, most of that first training season, I would try to run straight through and not take any breaks.
mhm.
Um, and then my running partner was like, "No, let's do 9 1s." And so when I ran the first one, I actually ran 9 1s and I finished.
Yeah.
Um, and um, and then I've tried 5 1s since then. That's good too.
Mhm.
I've actually gone down to 3 1s.
Mhm.
So I might be doing 1 to 1 at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, whatever works for you and protect,
Yeah.
it saves your knees. You're
Hmm.
not, I'm sore maybe for a day or two post race, and then I'm back to regular. So,
Are
um,
you? You did it this last year, right?
yeah, last year I did the Marine Corps in October, and
I've always wanted to
which
do that one.
you need to. It
Yeah.
was such an amazing experience. I'd
Is
never
it
been
full? Is it full only?
It's a full only, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just amazing, amazing experience. And, it was my first time to go to Washington, D.C. So that in and of itself was a treat. Um, the museums were closed, but, just walking down, just
But you're
walking.
running by like the Pentagon and the
Oh,
National
yeah,
Mall
you
and
get
all the
that.
monuments and
So
stuff.
I did
That's
what I'm
awesome.
not supposed to do, which is, save your legs. But I spent Saturday walking, being a tourist. And then the race was on Sunday. But it just an amazing race. Should sign up for it. Um, Last year was the 50th anniversary, so I think there were like 40,000 runners. It was, yeah, it was like a world major. Um, but
How was the weather?
amazed. It was nice. It was cool. It was perfect weather. It's very hilly. So, in Houston, we don't really have hills. So it did a lot more walking up the hill. And then, what goes up must come down. So I would just run it down to make up the gap. But
Yeah, the closest thing we have to a hill on our marathon is that little stretch on Memorial Drive
I know,
where
yeah.
it goes up for a while. And it to somebody like from Boston or something. I don't know. Is Boston hilly? Maybe somebody in San Diego or San Fran,
Mhm.
looking at Houston, they'd be like, "These
That's a
aren't hills."
course. I know, like,
But for us, I mean, that's like the worst part of the race.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, that's what I did last year. I did the Marine Corps, a lot of fun. I've done Chicago, which was a blast. The crowd support there is just
I
amazing.
did Chicago. Chicago's
Mhm.
great. And it was a little warmer than usual because, they run it in October.
Yeah,
And
you never it's hit or miss.
in the morning, great, nice and cool. But by the afternoon, it was kind of warm. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, great crowd support. You get to run by what's the famous like kind of silvery looking piece of art they have there?
Being
The bean.
Mhm.
Yeah, run by the bean, and it was cool. Yeah, I had a good
Good.
time.
But yeah, with that, you learn about mindset as well with running. I mean, so everything, and it's, I talk about running a lot in my book. But it is learning to have a positive mindset and learning that I can do anything and surrounding yourself, what they say, who look at your friends and that's where you're going to be. If you're going with people who can help build you up or are you hanging out with people who are going to pull you down. And
You
so
know what? We talked this whole time about you writing a book and about what it's about, and I still haven't asked you what's the name of the book. Tell them what the name of the book is.
the book is Judge Me Not, and it is on Amazon. You can get Kindle or you can get it in paperback version. I'm self published, so which is amazing that you can just do all of this. But I wrote it a few years ago, and it's a quick read, but it's not just for lawyers. I've had a lot of in the running community, friends who have read it, other neighbors and non lawyers who have read it, and they've said that it's helped them because it resonates with people that of having boundaries, of learning what self-care is, because a lot of people don't know it. You hear these lofty have boundaries, have self-care, but you don't know what that is. And so I give real world examples, and it just normalizes mental health issues. And it is okay to have a therapist. It's okay to
Hmm.
put your wellness first. It's okay to I'm in maintenance now. So it's okay to continue to see a therapist so that you can maintain your mental health. That it's like going to the doctor, going to the dentist.
I feel like attitudes have shifted over the years too. I'm Gen X. I'm 53.
Mm,
And when I went to high school in the late 80s, early 90s, um, there was kind of a stigma attached to it, and maybe even into the time that I was in college or even a young adult. But that either I don't care anymore, and maybe that's the way I perceive it, that there's no stigma, or there's just such a reduced stigma. I don't think it is the way it used to be.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not. It's definitely there definitely used to be a huge stigma, to the point where I was like, okay, well, I need some help. So I would talk to a life coach. And I'm like, okay, well, this is not, I need more help. I need professional help at this point. So but yeah, I think people are more open about it now. And there's so it's reduced the stigma.
I look forward to it. I mean,
Mhm.
I'll go once a month. Sometimes if I need to, I go like twice a month.
Yeah.
And by the time it's time for me to go, I'm ready. I'm ready to go in there and talk, and just kind of like help me organize my mind, organize my thoughts,
Exactly.
and
Mhm.
yeah, it's
And
great.
it's good, and it makes you more present as a husband, as a parent, and as a professional. So
Yeah. So anyone who is on the fence about it, it's totally worth it. You should
I
totally
agree.
do it. Yeah. And it's like trying on, you know, clothes or finding the right fit. You may not find the right person right away. Um, the you do have to kick the tires and kind of see if that person is the right fit for you. I know I tried somebody. My first attempt at it, my dad had passed away. Um, and and then at the same time, I was working at a firm that I was not happy working at, and I was just really kind of in a bad place. And that's the first time I went. Was when all that stuff was going on. And the first guy I saw, he was a psychiatrist, not a therapist per se. And I think his gut reaction was just to pull out the prescription pad, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted to talk.
Yeah,
And so I kept looking, and I found the right person, and the person I have now, she's great, and it's all we do is we talk,
that's
and
good.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's great. So,
you get that unconditional positive regard, which is actually very healing. So,
yep. Um, so let's talk about burnout too. When did you first realize that something wasn't right?
uh, I guess let's see. I started therapy in 2021. So for probably a year prior to that, I just I guess to call it depression. But I was just walking around, just like I said, having tears in my eyes all the time. And I was just tell people like, oh, it's just my allergies.
Yeah.
And it finally just came to a head. I was at the law library doing some research and walking back to my car, and just the thought of having to go back to my office, check my emails, respond, respond to phone calls, was it just made me burst out in tears. And I'd hit the wall at that point. It still took me, and I had been looking for therapists for a few months prior to that. But as lawyers, we're the ones who fix things, and so
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't need a therapist. I can do this. I can just, I just need to listen to some more self help tapes, or um, run some more miles. But that experience walking back to my library, I had already found somebody that I was interested in. And I just went, I got on, sat in my car, got on my phone, looked up their website, and did the online consultation request. And, you know, the rest was history. So,
It's cathartic. And
um,
then, that with running too, I'm sure you're just in a happier place because running is great, especially while you're out there, and you're out there for 2 hours on a Saturday with all these people and you're talking and you're
yeah,
getting those endorphins kicking, you're out and getting the fresh air. But then you go home and you take a shower and then after you eat breakfast and get a chance to relax, sometimes it fades, and then
yeah,
that anxiety comes back, that those feelings come back, and that's where you need some additional some reinforcements.
yeah, some other, yeah. And that's what I did. I may have learned a bunch of tools to, that I can use to help me get, if I start to fall back, because, healing is it's going, two steps forward, one step back.
Hmm.
But I have tools now, and meditation's a big part of that. Um, learning not to always say yes. I was a big people pleaser. And so if I got invited, I'm like, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that, to my clients. Yes, I can get this done. I'll get you a draft by tomorrow. Even if it meant I'm staying up till, 2 in the morning to get them their draft, that when we don't have court for another 2 months, or, just, it's just being a people pleaser. So even though, and then just, you have, as lawyers, we have imposter syndrome. So I was dealing with being a people pleaser, feeling like I wasn't good enough, that, I don't know the law perfectly, and nobody does. It's called the practice of law for a reason. Just like with medicine, it's an art, not a science. There's science behind it, but in treating your patient, you have to consider, the full picture, not just, their labs are one part of the picture, but what is their physical presentation? What are their signs and symptoms? And, you're figuring out things. And so with law, to an extent, it's a practice. You learn through trial and error what are good defenses, but every case is different. And that's also what I love about representing people. Every case is different. Um, but yeah, coming from that people pleaser, um, imposter syndrome, mindset, it made me work even harder. And that also contributed to my burnout. So being available 24/7, working hard all the time. So my clients never, I don't, I don't believe they ever realized what I was going through, because I'm still getting, good reviews from my clients. I'm still winning awards. Again, being a high achiever, you just learn to compartmentalize that. But it just finally, I was, like I said, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I finally had enough, and I needed to cry uncle.
Yeah, yeah, and setting boundaries, like you said, really, really important. I think a lot of times, uh, clients will be like, "Well, I'm paying them. I'm paying him to be my lawyer, so I can call him 6 times a day. I can call him at 9 o'clock at night," and I try and set those, like, on paper. I try and set expectations early now after
Mhm.
trial and error.
Yeah.
And I think I get along for the most part. There's gonna be some clients who just don't get them out, like, who don't read it or don't care,
Mhm.
and are gonna act the way they're gonna act. But for the most part, I think most of my clients are like, "Oh, okay, well, this is the way things are gonna be, and I'm okay with that." So,
Yeah. I mean, people
yeah.
people respect boundaries. So you just, with the rule, you have a 57, 50 minute session with your therapist, and that was something that was important for me with my therapist, was him being firm with those type of boundaries, because it helped me to realize, okay, it's safe to have a boundary, and your clients actually will respect you more if you, here, I've clearly communicated my boundaries. like my communication, and I put it in my retention letters, and we discuss it at our consults. Is here's my firm's communication policy. I don't take phone calls. We either schedule it or, send me an email, send me a text, or leave me a voicemail, and I'll schedule it. But I'm not. But don't
Mhm.
be expecting me to answer my phone immediately because it's respectful to everybody's schedule, and then we're not playing phone tag. Um, but I also have a boundary of, again, you use your judgment on the issue, but unless it's an emergency or, I deem it's an emergency, I'm not going to immediately respond. I may acknowledge, like, received your email, I'll get back to you. But I typically, and I have it in my email signature block that, please allow at least 24 to 48 hours for a response. So,
I I put that in my FAQs that I give clients, but I need to start doing that constant reinforcement, um, in the email signature. That's a great idea.
but it's just little things like that because I came from the culture. And when you're doing, defense work, when you're representing Bridgestone Firestone, and they're paying you the big bucks. As a baby attorney, I think they were billing me out like at 500 an hour, and I'm like, okay, you
So
know,
after you were at the VA's office, you worked in civil litigation
I
too?
did. Mhm. I went
Okay.
to, I
Insurance defense?
started off in Dallas, and then I moved. I've been in Houston, the greater Houston area. Yeah, insurance defense, first party defense. But I moved to Houston in 2002. And I've been here ever since. And I live out in Fort Bend now, and that's where my firm is. But yeah, I've represented Bridgestone, Firestone, Cooper Tires, and all other over litigation,
I
Murphy
remember that.
Wyatt, and their products liability litigation. And then we did medical malpractice defense. And so we did a lot of the hospitals in town. Um,
I
and
did
some,
that briefly.
okay, yeah.
I briefly did med mal defense.
Yeah, and you're just like, I mean, you are responsive to the, they have reporting deadlines. You better get your reports done. So
Oh yeah. I I
I
don't
don't
miss
miss it either.
that.
I'm much happier being my own boss.
Oh,
So
yeah. I didn't really when I started out in toxic tort, which was its own different animal, and technically it was insurance defense, but it really wasn't.
yes.
It was just in its own really, just unique anomaly in the law. All we did was go to depositions over and over and over again, and, it was, the same 40 or 50 attorneys at every depot, and I traveled all over the state, sometimes the country, um and it was so easy to bill.
Mhm.
Like, because I was doing so much travel, I'd do all this block billing. I'd make my hours, and
Yeah.
it was never an issue. Then I went to a firm where I had to point one my way through the day,
Yeah, that's
and
painful.
it's miserable. It's so miserable. Every email, every letter you open, every phone call, just you spend more time billing than you do working. It's just
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't anyway.
But
Not
yeah, 'cause you training.
not to disparage anybody
Training.
who's doing that right now. Good,
Yeah, yeah. No, no, it's excellent training. Yeah, I've made a lot of good friends when I was working at the firms in town, and we're still friends now. Even though we haven't worked together for gosh, over 15 years. We still get together. We try to get together quarterly to just to
Are they
talk.
still doing it? Are they still in insurance defense?
I am the, oh, well, no, there's another one. There's a core group of us that still get together. So I've gone out on my own, and then one of the other girls is now a mediator. And then the other three in our group, they still work at firms. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the shelf life is on insurance defense at the mid to large size firms, but I can't imagine it's super long. For a
yeah,
couple of reasons. One, there's only so much room at the top, and two, 180-hour billing requirements is it's just tough.
yeah, it
I
gets
mean,
you. Hmm.
yeah, especially when they write everything off.
Yes.
Um, so what made you shift then from working inside the system to building something of your own?
I, it was burnout. I didn't realize it was burnout from working on the defense side. Um, I just also knew that I was tired of how impersonal it was.
Hmm.
And, again, like I said, you're just moving, like with the Firestone docket. If it was a death case, you already knew what to value it at. And, we had the same experts, like with toxic tort. You always have the same experts, the same discovery. It's so it just to an extent it was cookie cutter.
Hmm.
And
Do you get bored?
I got bored. I was also traveling a lot in that docket. Um, on the,
I was too. Yeah.
and so, but I got tired of just how impersonal it was. And, and then I was working in an environment that, just wasn't sustainable long term.
Hmm.
So I decided, you know what? I want to represent people and, you know, did family law, kind of just fell into that. Yeah, hanging my head
When did you open your own firm?
in 2010.
Okay. And when you started your firm, what did you think success looked like?
Kind of what it is right now, where I can pick and choose my clients. Working from home to me was a huge thing. You know, like right now, I'm in my home office and I'm just wearing my yoga pants and my tennis shoes. So I'm
I'm at
comfortable.
home to do. I'm at home too. I try to work from home one day a week at least.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so to me, that was, honestly, just the convenience of being able to work from home and not always have to go into an office. Being my own boss, setting my own hours. When I worked for the law firm, even if I worked until 11 o'clock and I took work home and continued to work, I was still expected to be in there by 9
On
30.
Saturdays too.
Yeah, on Saturdays. And
Yeah.
I have a funny story on that. On Saturdays is one firm. So I worked at two different firms in Houston. Um, But yeah, this one firm, even if it's just FaceTime was important. And so it was getting away from the FaceTime. And so now, if I feel like taking off for the afternoon, I need to go run some personal errands, I can go do that. And I'll just make up my time this evening or sometime during the week. Or, I try not to work on the weekends. That's one of the other boundaries that I've set is you have to have that time to unplug from the desk, from your laptop, and so I really tried not to work on the weekends, and if that means I have to work really late a couple of days during the week, then that's the sacrifice, the trade-off that I make to have 2 full days to completely unplug from work.
Yeah. You need to. Um,
Because it may be, I always tell people it's, this I feel like it's a calling to be able to be a lawyer, to do what I'm doing, but it's also a job, and it goes back to the you can't fill from an empty cup.
um, what made you decide to run a marathon for the first time?
Something that I hadn't done, challenging yourself. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And that first season of training for a marathon was just amazing because every time, again, I came from somebody who was not athletic, who I started running with the women in my neighborhood, and we would run a 1 mile loop. And I'm like, shouldn't we build up to that? Um, and, to doing the 5K where I took 2 goos. So in the training with, USA Fit, they have their schedule. And so every time we would, who's, week was this the first time to run 10 miles? I'm like, me. First time to run 11, me. But when
Yeah.
we did our first, it was, uh, it was the 30K. So, but was it like 16 miles? When I did my first 30K, that was just a shift in my head that I can do this. Oh my God, I just ran, and again, it's doing the Jeffing. But, just knowing that,
And for people who are listening, that's Jeff Galloway, who RAP just passed away, and he's the one that teaches the run walk method, like run five, run walk one, or run three, walk one. I think three one's
yeah,
more
just have
popular now.
it
I
is.
think.
3-1 is
Yeah.
pretty popular. Yeah, just whatever works for you. I have some friends who run a mile and then they'll walk. Or a friend who runs, she walks the water breaks. And so she runs, and then when they get to the aid stations, she walks through that, and that's her break. But, it's just giving your body a chance to try to recover.
The
But no,
the
so running my first marathon that training season, and I used to, you know, run the mile that you're in. I mean, all these things that they would tell you, it didn't really hit until you're in the middle of it. Don't think about how many more miles you have to do. Just be in the mile that you're doing. I used to tell myself, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Just get through this, and sometimes like get through the next minute. But you realize you can do that. And it also, that mindset translates into life, that you can do hard things and, you know, to get through it. So, but it goes to your mindset. If you tell yourself you can do it, you can do it.
Mental the mental part of it for me, yeah, I mean, especially after mile 18, you really have to like check in with yourself and, you can do this. But when you get into downtown at the end and you see all those tall buildings, that's when I'm like, the only reason I'm keep going is because I'm almost there. Because at that point, I want to quit. I'm done. My legs have,
Mhm.
have given out on me. Like I can barely move and everything hurts. It's just by the time I get downtown, I'm kind of miserable.
Yeah. And then
But
you have
that's
the
where,
crowd cheering you on, and you're like, okay,
yeah,
you can dig deep, finish strong. So, and then
yep.
I found that encouraging the other runners around you encourages you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I make a point to do that. If I see somebody who I look, who looks like they're struggling, I'm like, "You're doing good. You got this." Keep on going because yeah, you hear it as well. So
I, I had my worst marathon one year. God, I can't remember when it was, but it was really humid. And a friend of mine, Chris, had just run an ultra. And so he was in great shape, but he is my friend. And he was like, well, I know we're kind of at different levels right now. So I'm not going to try and push you too hard. But I still felt like I wanted to keep up with him. I didn't want to slow him down too much.
mhm.
So I wasn't drinking that much water. I wasn't drinking enough water. It was super humid. I was trying to keep up with this really fit friend of mine. And I bonked like real hard, real hard. That's the first time, the only time that I ran it where I didn't chip time because I took longer than the 6 hours.
Yeah.
Um, because and there was a certain point too where I just kind of was like, you know what, I'm gonna finish, and I don't care about the chip time. I've also run the marathon like 7 or 8 times. Um, and I never stop and drink a beer. They always have those beer stands where they have,
Mhm.
and I never ever stop. I'm like, no, that's time. I'm gonna lose. But this time I was like, I don't care. I'm not. I just don't care. So I stopped and I had a beer and I enjoyed it and whatever.
Did it help?
Uh,
Did they say the hops helps with the muscle fatigue?
I don't know.
Like, okay,
I
it
felt
just made
I
you off
felt
cue.
dead.
I'm like, all right, let's get this
I
done.
just didn't care. Like I saw my
Mhm.
father-in-law at mile 20, and he was like, yeah. Like he looked at me like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "You're like." He said my face was like gray, but
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it was the worst one I'd ever had.
yeah.
But more than ever, more than any other marathon I'd ever run, that was one where getting in that right frame of mind and saying I'm going to finish it. That's what got me through it. And
Mhm,
like you said, that's part of it that helps us in our professional lives and our personal lives too.
mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's just mindset. So,
Yeah. So did marathon training help you recover from burnout or prevent it?
um, I, well, it didn't prevent it because I did have burnout. So, but I think it helped me a lot because you're out there running, and then it's also social. Because I have the girls that I run with, just my Corp and Fit colleagues. You know, we've been running now for 10 years together. And so you get to know everything about their lives. You celebrate their wins and their losses, and it just becomes your community. And for me, my experience with the running community has just been phenomenal. Everyone's just super supportive. Um, because I'm not an elite runner. I am a back of the pack, fun
Me
party.
too. Me too.
So everyone's like, "We got this. We can do this." I don't. And I had to give myself permission to do the Jeffing, mentally, again, coming from that height, like if you're not first, you're last. Like, you know what? I'm never going to be first. It is
Ricky Bobby.
okay. Yeah. So I'm like, it is okay to walk. It's okay to have a slower pace. It's the fact that I'm out here. It's good for your body. It's good for your mental health. And, I have friends. So,
Yeah, no, I agree. When I did it too, you form these friendships because you're out there with people for hours, sometimes like 3 hours,
yes.
and then you probably run the marathon with them too, and then you get out there, 4 hours plus if you're like me.
Mhm. And then you don't
Um,
recognize them when they're in, like, everyday clothes. So,
yeah,
of course, because 'cause you're so used to
uh,
seeing their hair pulled back and sweaty and
yeah, yeah. You actually look nice when you take a shower and
mhm,
don't look like you got 12 rounds with Mike Tyson. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so for professionals who are too busy to train to run a marathon, what would you tell them?
Do something, do Pilates, you have to do it's feeding your whole body. So, with your nutrition, because 'cause I've been paying a lot of attention to macros lately, but in nutrition, physical, if it's Pilates, walking, riding a bike, just getting on a treadmill. You don't have to be hardcore and do something like a marathon. And, the mental meditation, so that you're feeding your whole self.
So we're kind of coming up on 50 minutes or so now, and I promised you I'd get you out of here in a little less time than that. So we'll go ahead and start wrapping up. But I want you to give you the opportunity to tell anybody listening how to find you, how to connect with you, how to get in touch with you if they need a good family lawyer to help them with their case.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is cynthiarendon.com, CynthiaRendon.com, or you can just Google me, Cindy Rendon, and it'll pop up. I also, if anyone's interested in my book, you can go on Amazon. It's really cheap. I think I make 30 cents a book. So I didn't write this to make money. I wrote this to help people, anyone who's in the profession and going through what I was going through, or new lawyers, so that you can have best practices in place and don't get to the point that I got to. So if you want a book, I'm happy to also mail one to you. If anyone wants to contact me, just through my website and let me know, or you can just get on Amazon. I think it's like $2.99. So
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it on Amazon today.
So
I'm gonna order it. I'll get you your 30 cents from me, Cindy.
Thank you. I know, I'm making money while I'm sleeping.
So, and then I think they can find you on Super Lawyers too, aren't you? Aren't you
Yes. I'm
Texas Super
on
Lawyer?
Super Lawyers. I've been a Texas Super Lawyer since 2023. So they can find me on there.
And that's only 5% of lawyers get that designation too.
Yes,
So
yes. I actually was very thrilled to get, that was something as a lawyer, we'll just geek out on that. As a lawyer,
yeah.
I'm like, this is awesome. When I got that email, I just felt like I won the lottery. So
Yeah, they don't just give it away. You don't just sign up. You have to get nominated. There's a whole process, and there's a selection committee and all that stuff. So
yeah,
really impressive.
thank you. Just stay grounded. So
I'll ask you one last question, and then we'll close on this. If burnout is the wall at mile 20, what's the finish line for you now?
Is being able to look back and see where I came from, looking back and seeing all the tools that I've learned in therapy. Again, we've talked about it. The meditating, having my boundaries in place. I'm a much happier person. I have the type of practice that I want. And then, part of that was also the funnel effect of, okay, here's the type of clients I want. What do I need to do to get those clients? And I've weeded out some red flag clients who I know their expectations are not realistic, and I'm never going to be able to satisfy them. So I'm like, we're just not going to be a good fit. And so those are clients that, I've been able to structure my caseload and create the life that I want. And that includes running and create, part of that is also just creating the type of clients and practice that I want. And so instead of, not every dollar is a good dollar. Not every dollar is your last dollar. And so having that mindset also frees me to, what? This is not a good fit, but that's okay, because I'm going to have, by saying no to you, I'm keeping myself available to take on the next client that is a good fit.
I will second that 100%. That is great advice. Cindy, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come visit with us. And I really enjoyed speaking with you again. I always enjoy talking to you. And hopefully we can do this again real soon.
Yeah, I enjoyed myself. Thank you. Thank you again for letting me be a guest.
Yeah, anytime. Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.